Grow your practice, grow your wealth, grow your impact. Find out how to spend less time in the dental chair and more time on the things you love.
Welcome back to the Dental Wealth Podcast. Glad to have you back for episode
99.
99. We have one more. Tomorrow I've got some amazing things to give away. You want to be there. You have to be subscribed or like the page, both. Also, I'm going to ask a huge favor. Listen, I see the numbers for Dental Wealth Podcast, which is like the listen part. Look, there are thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of listens. And thank you so much for your support. Do me a favor. I know most of you listen to this on your phone. Do me a favor. Open up your YouTube app. Go to Dental Wealth Podcast. Hit subscribe. We just released those not a long time ago to the YouTube channel and started really filming these and putting them out. But, I think if we've got to get that kind of subscription-based stuff. So do me a favor, open your phone if you're on your phone, do it, and open the Dental Wealth Podcast. Hit subscribe and like for me, please. I would appreciate that.
Just put Tower Leadership or Dental Wealth Podcast. We should come up, and then all you have to do is press subscribe. And every time we release one of these podcasts, just like you would on your iTunes, and you'll get notifications about it.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's good to listen to it, but I think sometimes it's good to watch it, And so I would definitely encourage you to have the ability to do both. So yeah, do me a favor. That'd be awesome if you could do that. Matthew, what do we have on tap today?
I actually have. I'm excited about this concept.
Okay.
A lot of times, when doctors call, they are having some frustrations with like the communication from the team standpoint.
Okay.
And it's, how do I approach this person and have this crucial conversation, or how do I make sure that they're getting the things done without it being like a falling out? So my question to you is, when it comes to communicating with the team, how should a doctor go about it?
There's so much packed into that question. And we could talk about in what situation, what are you talking about, what's the difficulty, and there's a lot of ways we can unpack that, by the way. So let me unpack it in a way that I think would be extremely helpful, okay? And so if you have a pad of paper, this is a good pad of paper moment to write this down. But I've been using this technique for probably since about 2011, so roughly a decade. And it's an amazing technique, and understanding that, and by the way, if you can go back to this, you'll realize where you went wrong. By the way, this is good for spouses and stuff too, and friends. And so this is a good Thanksgiving's around the corner. This might be good Thanksgiving,
to get your kids to eat their peas or whatever it is.
It's so your siblings don't throw something at you. I mean, I think that we're at that place, right? We got to keep the arguments down. It is a good place, right? Because what happens at that Thanksgiving Day meal is the same thing that sometimes happens in dental practice, except the fact that we can express truly how we feel. And something about right before the turkey served, everyone's hungry and it gets kind of heated. We just had an election, so that only raises up the amount of anger and So here's what ends up happening. So there's 3 types of communication. And like I said, I've been using this for a long time, and I won't take credit for this. I learned this when I was getting an MBA. This is just something I've been using for a long time. I can't even tell you where it came from, so apologize if you do know who it is. I don't know, but certainly want to give credit where credit's due. But it's a great concept. I've been using it for so long, and this concept is this. The 3 ways you can communicate to somebody are adult, parent, and child. And in fact, and here's why it matters, by the way, you're going to get the response that you give. You will get the response back based on what you give. So let me go to a dental office and give you an example. And by the way, you'll
say those again, the 3? What were the 3 again? Adult,
parent and child. Adult, parent, and child. Because when we go to communicate, we all have these styles within us, right? And so what happens is we don't understand why somebody's acting a certain way, but it's often our communication when we go to speak to them. So, and by the way, when I give you the adult version, it's that's kind of what like a psychiatrist or psychologist would tell you if they were doing some kind of counseling, or some kind of counselor would tell you, hey, look, this is the type of communication you should be using so that you guys are communicating. Well, it's really adult communication is what they're teaching you, right? So if you have some type of a relationship counselor, they're going to talk you through that, right? And so think about this for a moment when we start thinking about the way we communicate. So when we go child, so I'll give you just a very basic example in a dental office, but you can hear kind of where it comes from. The child is upset because the person came late. Okay, so you're the business owner. I can't say child because of the child's response. Yep. So the person comes late, and then the response is, you never show up on time. I tell you to be here on time. You're never here. You never show up time. You never, it makes me so upset because I've been telling you, by the way, this is also the doctor that says they can't find good people, by the way. And so they're ripping into this somebody. This is what happens. I come here. I'm always on time. You never come on time. And so this person, now how do you think they react to this?
Same way.
Adult, parent, or child? Child. So as soon as you do that, my instinct is to get defensive, right? In a child response, be like, you have no idea what I had to deal with this morning. My husband had to get out of work. Like, the car broke down. The kids weren't listening to me. I had to get lunches. I tried to get here on time. Right? And so what ends up happening is we don't get anywhere. And by the way, you can see this happening in a relationship at home. You can see this really happening anywhere. So like, it's really coming from it's not effective communication. Mm-hmm. And so what ends up happening is oftentimes though, then we say, okay, well, but Eric, I'm the boss. Okay. Remember, there's something called positional leadership. Okay. Be careful of having positional leadership. Just because you're the boss doesn't mean you're their leader. You might be in positional leadership. So you're in that position because you're their boss, but that doesn't actually mean you're leading them. So be careful of that. But when we think about this for a moment, we start to say, okay, all right, I'm hearing what you're saying, Eric. Okay. So what about parent? A parent would go back to that same person and say, I've told you over and over again to be on time. You need to be here within 5 minutes of getting, if you're not here 5 minutes before the clock strikes 8, you're late, just to let you know. And in the future, I expect you here on time. You understand me?
Yeah.
Right? There's the parent communication. And you might say, well, Eric, I'm the leader. I have the right to do that. Yeah, it's your business. You have the right to do anything you want to do.
Depends on the response you want to get.
It's crappy communication. But I mean, it is crappy communication because it doesn't really get you anywhere. You're like, well, I'm going to tell them, this isn't the military. I was in the military. You can get away with some of that in the military, but even in the military, like you could say, well, I saw that in the movie, so it works the same way. Trust me, I had guys who got Dear John letters. Trust me, I couldn't talk to them that way and get them motivated. Yeah. Okay, just because you're in the military doesn't mean you can scream and yell at somebody to get something done, by the way. What ends up happening is we're still trying to lead people, and I think that's understanding is like, I'm trying to lead people still. Okay, well, what does adult sound like? Adult is really the idea of really truly what the frustration is. It's actually being, what Patrick Lencioni would talk about is being vulnerable. That great leaders and great teams build trust. And the way you build trust in an organization is by being vulnerable. And even though vulnerability sometimes feels a little awkward, it truly is the way that you build organizations, and it's the way you build leadership. So I might say something to like this, Matthew, I've noticed you've been coming in late. Mm-hmm. Is there anything going on with you right now that I need to know about? And he's like, no. Right now his response is like, no. He's like, because I have to tell you something that as your leader, by the way, I'm making this up on the fly, okay? This is scripted out. As your leader, I feel like it's disrespectful to the team. And it's disrespectful to me to not be on time. Typically what ends up happening in that situation is we're all trying to race around to catch up from you not being here on time. So is there a way you and I could work together to make sure that you were able to get here on time? Or is there a way I could support you to make sure you're able to get here on time? Now, I want you to think about the way he's got to come back to me. He's not going to come back to me and go, this is bullshit. He's not going to do that. He's going to say, no, you're right, doctor. I
screwed up.
I think I just didn't think that I or whatever it is, I really haven't been getting up on time. I really have been focused around it. You're right. I really do need to make a commitment to the team, and great. So can we make a plan together to make a commitment that in the future, and so we start having this conversation, okay? By the way, we could do this forever, right? We could keep doing this. Now, ultimately speaking, don't beat yourself up if you got a child. We all do it sometimes. We all got a parent sometimes. Yeah. Especially when we're frustrated. But when you as a leader, as an effective leader, this is intentional leadership when you have leadership capital, because you lose leadership capital when you start screaming at people. Mm-hmm. You lose leadership capital when you start being overly demonstrative and you start talking down to people like you're their, like I said, positional leadership. But it's okay to talk to somebody and say, look, this is what's bothering me. Yeah. And this is what, and so it's like, it reminds me of like a marriage counseling when somebody would say like, I feel like, it makes me feel like, and as goofy as that sounds, there's a reason why it's taught over and over again, because it's effective communication, because it's vulnerability, and leaders get vulnerable. Leaders are willing to expose their frustrations. Leaders are willing to talk about the difficult issues. Because it's not okay in my mind as a leader to allow someone to continue to fail over and over again, talk down to them when they do, and then fire them after a period of time without ever having effective communication. And then gloating that you're a great leader because this person wasn't on time. No, it's not them. It's you as a leader. You're the problem. Because ultimately, that's true. It could have been that they are the problem, and ultimately they might have to exit the organization. But that is way down the road, because what happened was there is a reason why that person's late. Mm-hmm. There is a reason why they're late, and it might be that they don't care. Yep. But I doubt it. Yeah. I doubt it. And so what happens is when you work through effective communication with your team, you also, the more vulnerable you become, the more they'll listen to you, the more they'll be willing to listen to you, more they'll be willing to bring problems to you. Because then they'll start to communicate like adults, because you set the tone for the organization. Doctor, can I tell you a frustration of mine? I don't want there to be drama between the front and the back, because I've had those types of offices. What I will say is this. When this happens, it makes me feel like I'm not being supported. I'm just giving you an example, right? And so what I'd like to do is propose that in the future we were able to do this. Now, ultimately, that might not end up being, but it's effective communication before someone goes, the front or the back didn't do this, or I've told them 5 times to put it on the counter like this. See, even the teams need to learn to, like I'm saying this, I could create a whole workshop on this, right? Teams need to learn effective communication so that they can learn how to speak to each other when shit hits the fan. And it will, because here's what happens is, I remember a doctor told me one day, I called their, I think our team called their office to spot check something, and they had a horrible phone call. Then they were just checking the phones because I think their new patient numbers were slipping. Their acquisition cost was going a little high, so we were doing a little spot check. And when that was happening, the phone call was horrific. And the doctor said, you just called us at a bad time. You just caught us at a bad time. And I said, but that's what happens. Yeah. It's when in the military, it was train as you fight, fight as you train. Yeah. You in the military, we didn't go, well, here's if everything's calm and you see the sniper on the ridge or whatever, like you'll know exactly where it's coming from. Yep. We'll drop a little, like in a video game, we'll drop an arrow pointing to them. Like, I mean, no, that's not reality. And everything, we'll make sure it doesn't rain the day you go into combat. Is there anything else we can do to give you the perfect scenario, the right cross breeze? I mean, just in case you don't get warm, I mean, come on. Like, that's not reality. Reality is the reason that you train is when it gets rough, when it gets tough. Jocko Willink one time said, when, as a Navy SEAL commander, he said, when I would hit my guys the most was it was on their way back from the training mission. He said, I hit them back because I knew that their guard was down. I knew that they were slacking. I knew that they weren't ready. I knew their discipline had lacked. And they were on the way back feeling all good about their mission, and I'd hit them with everything I had because that's when I want to hit them. That's when I want to test them. Well, the same thing happens when you get stressed. Now, it might not be that extreme in a dental office, but when it gets stressful, Are you ready to handle the communication in a way that needs to be handled? Are you able to handle communication in that way? Are you able to walk through ways to communicate and breathe with each other? And I think that's ultimately it. Now, you might get frustrated, but as a leader, you got to work on this, right? And you got to work on this communication. So,
I don't think it's going to happen overnight. So if you're listening to this, you need to practice. I think the most important thing that you'll see is as you start communicating like this, it'll be a domino effect. I mean, we always talk about in all these podcasts is like the little things that happen, and eventually you're going to see a big uptick in everything.
That's right.
So it's a symptom.
Yeah.
So it's, if you imagine if you did this every single time and then your entire team communicated like this, what would that do for your practice?
Yeah, it's huge, tremendous. So I would write those down. I would get those down, like 99 going to 100 podcasts. Like that's a good one to end 99 on. Like get your communication down, because don't be a positional leader. Positional leaders say, I'm the boss. It's my business. I own it. Mm-hmm. If you're saying that to yourself,
they'll fall in line.
You've already lost the battle. That's not how this works. Like I will just tell them what to do, and if they don't like it, they can go somewhere else. That's why you can't find good people, because ultimately people want to be led, and so they want to follow a leader, and you have to work on yourself as a leader. It's the truth. And so you go back and say, look, I've got to become a better leader. And one of the ways I can do it is, what happens when I get frustrated, when my shit hits the fan, when things get stressful, when I've got two patients in the chair and things are going not the way I want them to do. How do I deal with that situation? And in that moment, we might have that situation we deal with, but how do we communicate with the team afterwards, how we can have better communication? And so it's ultimately, that's the key is vulnerability and being able to communicate why the frustration happens, and then being able to work as a team to be able to get over that. Speaking of communication, tomorrow's the day.
Dun, dun, dun.
So here's what I'm going to tell you. Tomorrow, I've got some things to give away. Now, I always tell people the reason why I don't say it all, but there's going to be some thousands. There's some value here. Like, you want to be on that podcast. Do not miss out tomorrow's podcast. Live. Be live. I'm going to do some things that are really, really, really cool. You want to be involved in that podcast. You want to be engaged in that. Look, be there. If you haven't, go on YouTube, hit subscribe so that you can see it there. Go on your Facebook, subscribe, be part of this. Look, guys, I'm doing this because I care about you. I've never met you. Most of you I'll never meet. But the truth is I do care, and I want to help you. And so let me help you. Help me help you, right? So look, block it off on your calendar. If you got something, move it. Be there. If you got questions, submit the questions to Matthew. He'll read those out. We'll bring them, and we'll have a dialogue. Yep. And so you might be in a situation right now. Literally, the information we give you on that podcast might literally change the entire direction of your financial life and practice. But you got to be willing to commit the time. Scarcity versus abundance. Be abundant. If you're a listener to this podcast, you know what I mean. Make sure you're abundantly thinking, like, I will make sure I make that time, because what if he gives me one thing, one tip, one piece of information that changes the direction of my entire financial life, and I've done it more times than I can count. Be there, be available, be part of it. We're so excited to have you be there. Matthew, thanks for being here again, buddy.
Thank you. Looking forward to tomorrow. We'll see you from 12 to probably 1,
whenever.
2 o'clock, whenever, however many questions you guys got. So, episode 100.
Sounds good. We'll see you guys tomorrow.